Welcome to Chimney Sweep University's online training series. If this is a free version, questions, interactive images, and certifications will be turned off. If this is a paid version, questions, images, and certifications will be available. Go to chimneysweeps.com to sign up for the paid version series. Enjoy your training presentation on mastering the 12-step sales process for home service technicians.
Today, we're doing a deep dive, laser-focused really.
Step 7, the report preview.
Exactly. Yeah, this is part of that 12-step procedure we've talked about, aiming to, really develop technicians into home sales experts. And step 7 is pivotal.
Okay, pivotal how? What's the core idea here?
The main thing is shifting the dynamic. So instead of the technician coming across like a salesman right then, the goal is really positioning them as an educator, someone helping the homeowner understand their own chimney.
Okay, I like that. An educator, not a salesperson. So the homeowner feels informed, not pressured.
Precisely. You want them to grasp the actual condition of their chimney system.
And you've highlighted a few key ways to do this in the report preview stage. You mentioned using the completed inspection report as a digital aid.
Yes, that's the first part. Then using custom before and after sheets to show potential repairs.
Visuals. Good.
Very important. Then really taking the time to discuss all the chimney components. Pure education.
Building trust through that education naturally.
Right. And finally, letting the homeowner ask about repairs. But, and this is key, holding off on any cost discussion at this point.
Got it. Educate, build trust, answer condition questions, but save the price talk for later. Okay, so let's dive into this step 7. How do we turn this report preview into, like, an educational win?
Well, the first thing that stands out, like you mentioned, is using that completed report as a digital aid. It's a definite move away from, older methods.
They're like Polaroids and stuff. I remember that being mentioned.
Exactly. Moving to a comprehensive digital report, maybe on a tablet, it just screams professionalism and clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just a checklist anymore. It's a proper overview. And I assume the detail level is important, covering every single part of the chimney.
Oh, definitely. The report has to be thorough.
Yeah.
It's the backbone of this whole educational chat. And high-quality images are just non-negotiable. Clear photos, videos maybe. You need the homeowner to see exactly what the technician saw up there or down there.
Right. It bridges that gap, doesn't it? Instead of just hearing there's a crack, they actually see the crack. It makes it real.
Totally. It moves beyond just, like, listing findings to providing actual visual proof. Big difference in impact.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, you also mentioned these custom before and after repair sheets. Tell me more about those. How do they fit the educational angle?
So think about it. People respond to seeing results, right? Tangible improvement.
Yeah, for sure.
These sheets are, well, they're really powerful because they don't just show the problem, they show the solution and the benefit. The before picture grounds it in the current reality.
The issue found during the inspection.
Right. And the after picture paints a clear vision of, what a properly repaired, safe chimney looks like. It helps the homeowner connect the dots. Okay, that's the problem, and this is what fixing it achieves.
So it shifts the focus from the damage to the positive outcome. That feels much more constructive, less scary maybe.
Exactly. It frames the potential repair as a restoration, bringing things back to how they should be for safety and function.
I can see how that would work. Okay, so we've got the digital report with photos and these before and after visuals. Now the core educational piece, discussing all the components. Your source, the full book, seems quite detailed here.
It is, and this is where the technician really shines as that educator. The idea isn't to overwhelm, but to guide the homeowner through their chimney as a system.
A system, okay. Not just random parts.
Correct. So you explain what each part does first, its function. Then you relate the inspection finding to that function. Take the chimney cap, for instance.
Okay, the thing on top.
Right. Instead of just saying your cap's damaged, the tech explains, look, the cap's job is crucial. It keeps out rain, snow, debris, animals, the kind of protection building codes aim for.
Okay. So you link it to its purpose.
Yes. And then you say, and here's what we saw with yours. See this rust, this crack. That means it might not be doing its job effectively, letting water seep in.
Gotcha. So it's context first, then the specific issue. That makes the issue understandable. What else? The source lists quite a few things. Top flue tile.
Yeah, the top section of the liner. If that's cracked or damaged, again, it's an entry point for water, which can cause all sorts of hidden damage further down. Standards highlight how serious that can be.
And the crown. I saw a note about it needing a slope.
Exactly. The crown is like the concrete roof of the chimney structure itself. It needs that slight slope to shed water away from the flue opening and off the brickwork. If it's cracked or flat, water just sits there and soaks in.
Makes perfect sense, like a mini roof. Then flashing, that's where the chimney meets the actual house roof, right? Always seems like a tricky spot.
It is super critical for preventing leaks. The technician would explain how it works to seal that joint and then show any signs of failure. Rust, gaps, sealant pulling away. Very important, especially in certain climates.
Okay. What about chimney shoulders? What are those?
Those are typically where a wider part of the chimney steps down to a narrower part, often below the roof line. It's another area prone to water pooling or cracking if not built or maintained right. Think structural points where materials meet.
Right. And the lintel joint. Sounds technical.
It's basically the support structure over the fireplace opening inside. Because it's exposed to high heat, it needs special refractory mortar, not regular stuff. If that's cracked or failing, it's a potential fire hazard.
Okay, wow. So moving inside then, smoke chamber.
Yeah, the sort of funnel-shaped area above the fireplace damper that leads up into the flue liner. Codes actually specify it needs to be smooth-parged, they call it, to help smoke draft efficiently and, importantly, reduce creosote buildup.
Ah, creosote. That's a big one for safety.
Huge. The technician absolutely needs to explain what creosote is, show any buildup found, and explain the fire risk in simple terms. Codes are very clear on the need for inspection and cleaning. This directly hits home on safety.
Yeah, you can see why. And the flue itself, the main channel.
Discuss its condition, any cracks, missing mortar joints, mention how it needs proper support, especially if there are multiple flues in one chimney structure.
Okay. And smoke shelf access. Last one on that list, I think.
Right. Basically explaining why there needs to be access behind the damper usually. It's for cleaning out soot and debris that falls down, and for inspection. If it's blocked or inaccessible, that's an issue.
So walking them through all of this, it really does paint a picture of the chimney as a whole system, doesn't it? Each part has a job.
Precisely. And when you explain the job first, then show the issue, the homeowner understands the implication of the finding. It's not just a defect, it's something affecting the safety or function of their home.
And that's the foundation for building trust right there.
Absolutely. They see the technician not as someone pushing repairs, but as a knowledgeable professional, genuinely looking out for their best interests, their safety, the integrity of their house.
It changes the whole feel of the interaction.
It does. Education builds that bridge. And when they trust you, they're much more likely to listen when you do eventually talk about solutions.
Yeah.
Which your sources emphasize is key for long-term relationships.
Yeah, people remember feeling informed and respected, not sold to. Okay, so this leads naturally to the next point. Letting them ask about repairs, but keeping cost out of it for now.
Exactly. After you've gone through this whole educational tour, questions are natural. Okay, so that crack in the flue, what does fixing that involve? Or how do you repair a crown?
And this is where the technician needs to be ready to answer, but carefully.
Right. The key is to talk about the how in general terms. Focus on the process, the types of materials used, the goal.
So maybe saying something like, well, repairing a flea tile often involves installing a new liner system for safety, or for the crown, we'd remove the damaged material and rebuild it with a specialized high-strength, weather-resistant concrete mix. Something like that.
Perfect. You're explaining the process and the kind of materials without getting into brand names or, crucially, specific dollar amounts. You can mention that heat-resistant mortar, again, for relevant repairs.
And you could tie it back to the codes, too, maybe?
Definitely. Frame it around safety and compliance. The goal of this type of repair is to bring the chimney back up to current safety standards. You're reinforcing the why behind the potential work.
In the AI part you mentioned earlier, identifying code issues.
Yeah, the technician could mention, our inspection flagged this as not meeting current building codes for safety, and the typical solution involves XYZ, still general.
Could you also mention maybe simpler fixes versus full code compliance? The source mentioned alternative repairs.
You could, carefully, acknowledge that sometimes there are different approaches, maybe a temporary fix versus a long-term code-compliant one. But you have to be super clear about the limitations or potential drawbacks of simpler options, managing expectations and liability. Again, no pricing here.
Okay, so the focus remains informational. Answering questions about the condition, the types of repairs needed based on what they've just learned, the general what and why and a basic how, but the how much is deliberately parked.
Exactly. You're arming them with understanding first.
And all this education and trust built in step 7 that sets the stage for step 8, the retail close.
Perfectly. When you get to step 8, where you do present specific recommendations and costs, The homeowner isn't hearing it cold. They understand the underlying issues, they trust the technician's assessment, and they appreciate the need for the work. It makes that conversation much smoother, much more collaborative.
They see the value because they actually understand the problem you're proposing to solve.
That's the goal.
Okay, this makes a lot of sense. So for our listener really leaning into this step 7, the report preview, it's a huge opportunity. It's about consciously shifting into that educator role.
Yeah, using those digital tools, the before and afters, walking through every component.
Explaining the why behind everything, answering their questions thoughtfully, but holding back on the price talk. It really builds that foundation of trust.
Which is invaluable for the rest of the sales process and for keeping that customer long term.
So the big takeaway seems to be embrace being the expert educator at this stage. Make sure they get the what and the why deep down before you even think about mentioning the how much.
Absolutely. And maybe something to really mull over is, how do you tailor that explanation? Different homeowners have different levels of understanding, different ways they learn best.
That's a good point.
How can your technicians adapt their educational approach? Use those visuals effectively for each individual to make sure that this Chimney masterclass really connects and empowers them. That feels like the next layer of refinement. We're diving deep into step 8, what he actually calls the retail close.
Exactly. And, this deep dive is really about understanding how you take all that trust you've hopefully built
Right.
and turn it into actually addressing the client's repair needs effectively. So the mission today, let's really dissect this retail close. It's your first real shot at making that repair sale.
Right.
We want to pull out actionable strategies people can use, like right away. We'll be digging into Gessner's practical advice on presenting those recommendations and, the crucial part, closing that deal.
All right, so step 8, the retail close. It definitely sounds important. Why is this stage such a maybe make or break point in the whole 12-step thing?
Well, what's really interesting is that this is where all the groundwork you laid, steps 1 through 7.
Yeah.
It either pays off here or it kind of falls flat. You've built rapport, right?
Right.
You've diagnosed the problem and educated the client.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the retail close is that moment you shift. You go from being the consultant to being the problem solver, persuasively laying out your repair recommendations.
Okay.
It's not just about spotting the issue anymore. It's guiding the client to see you as the clear, obvious solution.
Got it. So Gessner breaks this down. 5 key parts, you said.
Yeah.
Let's tackle the first one. Emphasizing importance, value, and quality. This has got to be more than just saying, hey, this thing's broken.
Oh, absolutely. Precisely. I mean, imagine telling a homeowner, your chimney crown is cracked.
Okay. Means nothing.
Exactly. It doesn't inherently mean much. What Gessner really stresses is connecting that technical finding to something they actually care about.
Like what?
Well, for example, that cracked crown, it lets water in. That can lead to serious water damage, maybe compromise the whole chimney structure, even leak inside their house eventually. That's the importance.
Oh, okay, I see.
Then the value comes from explaining how your specific repair stops those bigger headaches, stops those future costs. Will it make their chimney last longer? Will it improve safety? Maybe prevent CO leaks?
Right, the benefits.
Those are the benefits they get. And finally, highlighting the quality, maybe you use a specific really good sealant known for lasting ages, or your technicians have special certifications. That builds the confidence that they're making a smart investment.
So you're painting the whole picture. Problem, consequences, your solution's benefits, and quality.
You got it. Selling peace of mind, essentially, preventing bigger issues down the road.
Makes total sense. Okay, second key part. Clear communication of recommendations. Sounds obvious, but I bet there are pitfalls.
Oh, definitely. It's so easy for us as the experts to just fall back on our technical jargon.
Mm-hmm. Guilty.
Yeah. So instead of just saying spalling brick, you explain, look, the brick face is crumbling because water's getting in and freezing and thawing. Simple, direct language.
Okay.
For every single repair you recommend, you clearly state what it is, why it's needed, and maybe what happens if they don't do it. Like you're explaining it to a friend.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Clarity is key. Don't just give them a list. Explain the why for each item so they feel informed. They understand the urgency or the necessity.
Got it. And the third part, product information.
Mm.
How deep do we go on the materials we plan to use?
Well, transparency really builds trust, right?
Yeah.
So giving details about the products, it just reinforces that value you talked about.
Yeah.
If you're recommending a specific type of chimney liner, mention the material, maybe stainless steel, mention its expected lifespan,
Right.
any warranty it comes with. If you use a particular brand of sealant because it's super durable, say so. It shows the client you're not just, like, slapping on some generic fix. You're using quality stuff designed to last. It helps justify the cost, reassures them they're making a good investment in their property.
Right. Shows you thought it through. Okay, number 4. Using sales sheets, specifically before and after illustrations. How much impact do visuals actually have here?
Oh, think about it. Most homeowners, they aren't chimney experts, right?
Definitely not.
So describing, say, a cracked flue liner is one thing, but showing them a photo, a picture of a damaged liner right next to a picture of a new, properly repaired one, that can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I'd see that.
Those before and after pics or illustrations, they make the abstract stuff tangible. It helps the client visualize the improvement, understand the value of the repair in a way that, honestly, words alone often just can't match.
True. From a problem they maybe don't fully grasp to a clear outcome they can actually see.
Exactly. Seeing is believing sometimes.
A picture really could be worth $1,000 here.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and the last of the 5 parts, maintaining a positive and engaging tone. Smile, energy, humor. How much does our attitude really sway the decision?
It's huge. Seriously. Your whole demeanor, it sets the tone for everything.
Yeah.
A genuine smile, some positive energy, maybe even a bit of appropriate humor. It builds rapport, makes the client feel more comfortable.
Puts them at ease.
Yeah. Remember, they're letting you into their home, trusting your expertise. A positive, approachable attitude, it just reinforces that trust, makes them more open to what you're recommending.
Mm-hmm.
Buying decisions, even for necessary stuff like home repairs, often have a big emotional component. A pleasant interaction can definitely help tip the scales your way.
Good point. Okay, now let's link this to something crucial for trust and value, pricing. The book really emphasizes transparent pricing, even suggests having pre-made price lists, maybe on sales cards. Why is that so vital right here at the retail close?
Well, what's really smart about having a price list, like right there and ready, it immediately tackles a potential worry point for the client.
Which is,
Are you just making this price up? Are you pulling a number out of thin air based on what you think they can pay?
right, that's suspicion.
Exactly. Seeing a clear, established price for common repairs, it just builds confidence in your fairness, your consistency. Gessner's totally spot on here. Having those prices visible, maybe right on your sales materials,
Yeah.
it reinforces that whole idea of transparent pricing. It shifts the talk away from like haggling over the cost and more towards the value of the actual repair. It makes the whole thing feel way more professional, less like a high-pressure negotiation.
So it's about getting ahead of that skepticism.
Yeah.
Building trust with upfront info.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, even with a great retail close, clients sometimes hesitate, right? They have objections. We're not diving super deep into objection handling today, but what's a key principle here?
The absolute core is to listen. Actively listen and do it with empathy. Don't see objections as like roadblocks. See them as chances to understand what the client's really worried about. By patiently hearing them out, addressing their specific questions clearly without pressure, you can actually build even stronger trust. And maybe still get to a yes. It's about collaboration, not confrontation.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Listen first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's say they agree. They want to move forward. What are the critical next steps we absolutely need to communicate clearly?
Right. This is where you lock in their confidence. You made the sale. Now show them they made the right choice. Clearly outline the process, how you'll order materials if any permits are needed, which, as Gessner points out, actually shows you're professional and above board. And then how the scheduling will happen. Give them a realistic timeline if you can. Explain how and when they can expect a call or email to actually schedule the work.
Manage expectations.
Exactly. And crucially, tell them, again, reiterate that they will get those before and after photos. It reinforces transparency, keeps them looped in.
Okay, that proactive communication sounds key for keeping things smooth. And after that initial scheduling, what about ongoing communication?
Yeah, regular updates are really important. It keeps the client feeling valued, feeling informed. Just let them know you'll keep them in the loop as things move along. And importantly, give them a clear point of contact.
Like a specific person.
Yeah, or a number, an email, somewhere they can reach out easily if they have any questions or concerns pop up. This ongoing chat minimizes anxiety and just reinforces that they made a good decision choosing your company.
Right. So for everyone listening, our learners out there, remember, this retail close, step 8, it's way more than just asking for the money.
Oh, yeah, much more.
It's this whole carefully orchestrated sequence.
Yeah.
Focused on clear communication, showing real value by tying repairs to what the client actually needs. Building solid trust through transparency, especially with pricing. And then clearly guiding them through exactly what happens next.
Couldn't have said it better. And, when you think about actually using these strategies, consider this. How does having a transparent pricing approach combined with clearly explaining the value behind each fix, how does that fundamentally change the conversation?
How so?
Well, instead of feeling like they're just being sold something, the client starts to feel like a partner with you in solving a problem for their home.
That is a powerful shift. A different dynamic entirely.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? As you work on refining your own retail close, what other maybe underlying psychological principles might be influencing that client's decision? Things like trust triggers or how they perceive risk. Could understanding those things make you even better at this really critical stage?
Step 9.
Handling and narrowing objectives.
Exactly.
And it's so key. Whether we're talking about, say, the chimney sweep examples we saw in the documents,
Right.
or really any business where you're offering a service, getting crystal clear on what your client truly needs and wants. That's the foundation for a good outcome.
Yeah, and this isn't just about, ticking a box on some sales checklist.
Not at all.
This step, if you do it right, it makes sure that the solution we end up proposing is actually the right one for the client. We want to avoid that whole here's everything we could possibly do scenario.
Which can be totally overwhelming.
Right. And instead, land squarely on what they actually need us to do.
Well, the sources you shared give us a great backdrop for this. They cover quite a bit: team management, customer happiness.
Yeah, lots of context.
And our goal in this deep dive is really to pull out those specific, actionable bits on how to understand what clients are aiming for.
And then help them focus.
Help them focus on the most important aims, exactly.
Okay, so let's dive right into step 9 then. Handling and narrowing objectives. It sounds straightforward enough, but I suspect.
Like a lot of things, the devil's in the details.
Precisely. We're looking at, 5 essential parts that make up this step?
That's right, 5 parts. And what's really interesting is how they work together. It's a process, discovery, refinement.
Not just checking off tasks.
Exactly.
Okay, let's start with part 1. Acknowledging and validating all stated objectives. Now, this seems obvious, right? Just listen. But is it that simple?
Well, it's more nuanced, I think. Think about that client initial questionnaire we saw mentioned.
Yeah, from the sales section.
Yeah. That's a deliberate attempt to get those initial thoughts down. But the form itself,
Yeah.
that's just the start.
Right.
The real value is in the conversation after. Often clients mention symptoms, not the actual root problem.
Okay.
So by really validating what they first say, maybe repeating it back like, okay, so if I'm hearing you right, you're concerned about X and Y. You create that space. They feel comfortable, maybe revealing the deeper issues they weren't even fully aware of.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like saying, okay, I've actually heard you before you jump to solutions.
Exactly. Which leads nicely into part 2.
Clarifying and prioritizing those objectives. Because, like you said, what someone first tells you they want might not be their biggest priority.
Correct. Or they might have, a list of things they want, but they're not all equally critical.
Right.
And this is where something like the detailed chimney inspection comes in handy.
From the sales material again.
Yes.
Yeah.
It helps you move past just the surface request, like, I need my chimney swept, to understand the why. What's really behind that? Is it a safety concern? Like, are they worried about creosote buildup, that kind of thing?
Like we saw mentioned early in that full book PDF.
Precisely. Or is it something else entirely driving the request?
So it's not just taking their first statement and running with it. You've got to ask more questions.
Absolutely. You need those probing questions to get to the heart of it.
Okay.
Remember chapter 1 talking about being a trustworthy advisor?
Not just a service provider. Yeah.
That really applies here. It's about guiding the client, helping them think through their own needs. You could ask something like, okay, of everything we've talked about, what's the single most important outcome for you right now?
Okay. That helps them rank things.
It does. Based on safety, maybe urgency, even budget, While the big budget talk might be later, like chapter 2 hints, it's always a factor in the background.
Sure, always. Okay, so we've acknowledged, we've clarified, we've prioritized. Now part 3. Identifying potential conflicts or maybe overlapping objectives. This sounds like where things could get a bit, dicky.
They can, yeah. Think back to what you just said. Someone might say they want the absolute cheapest repair possible.
Uh-huh.
And they also want the most thorough code-compliant fix. We saw codes mentioned in Chapter 12, right?
Yeah, building regulations. Okay, so those two things, cheapest and best, might directly clash.
Often they do.
Yeah.
Like get it for a steal versus get the absolute best situation you mentioned.
So how do we navigate that? You don't want to make the client feel like their requests are unreasonable.
No, definitely not. It's about tactfully pointing out those potential conflicts,
Mm.
but in a helpful way. So
Okay.
you're not saying you're wrong. You're helping them see the full picture. And that detailed reporting with photos from the job average
Oh,
info.
the visual proof.
Exactly. That becomes really powerful here. You can visually show them the chimney's condition, explain why certain repairs are needed for safety or code,
Right.
and that helps them understand why maybe the rock bottom cheapest option doesn't actually meet their other goal of being thorough and safe.
Showing, not just telling. That makes a huge difference, I bet.
It really does.
Okay, so we've navigated potential clashes. Part 4 is then narrowing the focus down to the key objectives, because we can't try and solve everything at once, right? That'd just be too much.
Way too much.
Yeah.
For you, the provider, and definitely for the client, this step is about taking all that information we've gathered, the validated needs, the prioritized list, the resolved conflicts, and helping the client zero in. Let's focus on the one or two most critical things.
And this feels really important for, well, for anyone listening, right? People want clarity. They don't want to be buried under options.
Exactly right. By narrowing that focus, you can then build a solution that directly, effectively tackles those core needs. Think about step 7, the report preview.
Right, in the sales process.
That's where you're laying out your findings clearly.
Mm-hmm.
It naturally leads the conversation towards the essential repairs, the ones that line up with those key safety or function objectives you've now identified together.
So it's a guiding process, guiding them towards what's most impactful. Okay, and that brings us to the final part, number 5, gaining agreement on those narrowed objectives. This feels like the moment of truth almost, getting that firm yes.
It really is the confirmation point.
Ooh,
You
yeah.
absolutely need to explicitly check back with the client. Okay, so we agree the main priorities right now are X and Y.
Get that verbal handshake.
Precisely. Because that agreement is the crucial foundation before you present your tailored solution in the next steps, like step 8, the retail close.
Ah, so you need this agreement before you start talking price and specific work.
Absolutely. Getting that clear understanding and buy-in first builds huge trust. And it really cuts down the chances of misunderstandings or, objections popping up later.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It just reinforces that whole idea that you're working together towards a shared goal, which is, a theme throughout all the material on building good customer relationships.
Okay, great. So just to quickly recap those 5 parts of step 9, handling and narrowing objectives. First, acknowledge and validate everything they initially say. Second, clarify and help them prioritize what's really important.
Right.
Third, identify any potential conflicts or overlaps in what they want.
Tactfully.
Fourth, help them narrow the focus down to the critical 1 or 2 key objectives.
Avoid overwhelm.
And fifth, get explicit agreement on those focused objectives before moving on.
That's the roadmap. And it's worth stressing, again, while our examples were chimney focused,
Sure.
these principles, they're incredibly transferable. Anytime you need to understand and meet someone's needs, sales, consulting, managing your team,
Pretty much anywhere.
these steps can really help you get better alignment and ultimately better results.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not just some slick sales tactic. It's fundamentally about good communication.
Understanding the other person's perspective.
And looking back at the source materials, you can really see how this specific step 9, kind of acts as a linchpin. It holds together a lot of that broader business philosophy.
Which I think raises a really interesting question for everyone listening. How can you take these 5 parts, acknowledging, clarifying, handling conflicts, narrowing, agreeing, and apply them more deliberately in your own work?
Yeah, what small changes could you make tomorrow, maybe, to make sure you're truly hearing, clarifying, and getting aligned on goals, whether it's with clients or even colleagues?
It's definitely something to mull over as you look back at your own processes or maybe revisit these sources. What other connections might jump out now?
What other aha moments are waiting?
And, perhaps thinking about this step has sparked ideas about other areas you'd like us to explore, other parts of the sales process maybe, or business strategy.
We'd definitely be interested to hear about that. Step 10, the final close.
The close. It's such a critical moment, isn't it? It's where the deal actually happens.
Exactly. But what's really interesting, based on the source, is how you get that signature. It's not just about getting the yes. It's about doing it without making the client suddenly think, hang on, was that first price too high?
You've hit the nail on the head. That feeling can completely erode the trust you've built. Gessner stresses that this final step needs finesse.
Finesse, right. So it's about confirming the sale, but also confirming the value in their decision, making sure they feel good about it long term.
Precisely. No buyer's remorse allowed if you do it right. And the book lays out 6 specific processes to navigate this without stumbling into those pricing pitfalls.
6 processes. Okay, let's get into it. The final close. It feels like the end, but it sounds like there's a lot going on psychologically.
Definitely. You've done all the hard work, shown your expertise, built that rapport. Now you need to lock it in, but in a way that actually strengthens their confidence, not makes them second-guess the price they just agreed to.
Okay, so process number 1, according to Gessner, is about presenting reasoned discount options. What does that mean exactly? Why reasoned?
Think about it. If you just suddenly offer, say, 10% off at the very end with no explanation.
Yeah, it feels a bit arbitrary. Like, could you have given me that earlier? Was the first price just inflated?
Exactly. It plants that seed of doubt. So Gessner says discounts need justification. They need a why.
Makes sense. He gives examples, right? Like the owner's letter discount.
Yeah, that's a good one. The idea is you frame a discount, maybe a slightly odd percentage, like 4.7%. Right, specific. And you frame it as coming directly from the owner, perhaps tied to savings the company found, maybe operational efficiencies, or because the job fits perfectly in the schedule, reducing travel, or even lower marketing costs for that lead.
So it feels less like a price cut and more like sharing a specific saving or benefit with the client, kind of exclusive.
That's the psychology. It feels earned or special, not just a standard haggle. It ties into, people liking that direct connection, feeling like they got an inside track.
Okay, I see how that works. And the other example, the marketing exchange discount.
That one's pretty straightforward. You offer a discount, but it's explicitly in return for something the client does for your marketing.
Like putting a sign in their yard.
That's the classic example, yeah. Or maybe allowing photos for your portfolio, or writing a testimonial. The discount is directly linked to a tangible marketing benefit for you. It's a clear trade.
A win-win. They save some money, you get some promotion. Okay, that makes sense. Process 2 then? The price assurance plan.
This sounds intriguing. It is. It's about showing supreme confidence in your pricing.
How does it work?
Gessner outlines giving the client a window, say 30 days after they sign, to find the exact same scope of work, materials, warranties, everything, for a lower price from a comparable competitor.
Okay. And if they do?
You don't just match it. You match it at A&D, give them an additional discount, like 5% more off the competitor's price.
Wow, okay. That is bold. What's the thinking there?
It tackles that, am I getting the best deal, anxiety head on. Basically says, we are so confident our value and pricing are fair, we dare you to find better. It can really stop people from feeling they need to keep shopping around after you leave.
Yeah, I can see how that would build immediate trust. It says you stand firmly behind your quote, but you'd have to be really sure of your pricing.
Absolutely. This isn't a bluff.
Yeah.
You need confidence in your value proposition.
Okay. Moving to number 3, engaging in open-ended conversations. This feels less about specific offers and more about listening.
Exactly. It's about shifting gears slightly. Don't just push for the signature. Create space. Ask open-ended questions like, how are you feeling about everything we've discussed? Or, are there any final thoughts or concerns you'd like to share?
And just let them talk.
Yes. Active listening is key here. Let them voice any lingering doubts or thoughts. Sometimes, Gessner points out, just hearing themselves talk it through can actually solidify their own decision. They sort of sell themselves on it.
Huh. That's interesting. Like processing it out loud confirms the value for them. The book also mentions role-playing.
Yeah, preparing for this stage. Role-playing different client reactions or objections with your team.
Why is that helpful here?
Because it means when a real concern comes up in that final closing moment, you're not caught off guard. You've practiced responding calmly, empathetically, without getting defensive. It keeps the conversation collaborative, not confrontational.
Right. Keeps it smooth. Avoids that feeling of pressure. Okay, process 4, validating the decision and reassuring the client. This sounds like it happens immediately after they say yes.
That's right. The deal is done, but your job isn't quite finished at their table. Now you reinforce their good decision and build even more trust before you pack up.
How do you do that effectively?
A big part is clearly, methodically outlining the exact next steps. No ambiguity.
Like what specifically?
You explain, okay, first we'll order the specific materials we discussed, then we'll handle acquiring any necessary permits. And the book actually mentions knowing about permit exceptions, like IRC Code 108.2, and checking with local officials.
Ah, showing that detailed knowledge.
Exactly. It demonstrates professionalism. Then you explain how repair staff will be scheduled, give them a realistic, tentative timeline for the work itself.
Managing expectations on timing.
Crucial. And assuring them they'll get before and after photos. That transparency is huge for documenting the work.
That detailed walkthrough must make people feel much more secure.
It does. And Gessner adds the importance of follow-up communication too, assuring them you're accessible, providing updates as things move forward. It removes the worry.
Got it. Then process 5 is customer assurance. How is this different from the reassurance we just talked about?
Think of it as longer term. The previous step is immediate, post-signature. Customer assurance is about reinforcing their confidence and reducing cancellations by showing commitment beyond the immediate job completion.
So maintaining the relationship after the work is done.
Precisely. It includes things like reminding them about continued support, maybe follow-up service options, or providing maintenance tips so they get the most out of the repair or installation.
Okay, and reminding them of warranties too, I imagine.
Definitely. Reinforcing the guarantee. It's also about maintaining that professional, empathetic approach in any future interactions and, importantly, soliciting feedback.
Asking for their opinion.
Yes. It shows you value their experience and helps you improve your service. It reinforces they made a good choice with a company that cares long-term.
Right, builds that ongoing loyalty. Okay, last one, number 6, the art of follow-up. This seems vital for deals that don't close on the spot.
Absolutely critical. Gessner makes the point that many, maybe even most, sales don't close in that first meeting. So having a structured follow-up process is essential.
Structure how?
He suggests a system maybe around 7 contact points over a period, but crucially, these aren't generic check-ins.
They need to be personalized.
Highly personalized.
Yeah.
Referencing specifics from your conversation, their particular needs or concerns, show you remember them and their situation.
Makes sense. And the book mentions using a final offer in the last follow-up.
Yes, potentially. A final compelling reason to act now, maybe a small specific discount or a value add. But importantly, you frame it respectfully as the final contact regarding that specific offer.
Creates a bit of urgency, but politely.
Exactly. No pressure, just clarity. And of course, track everything. See what follow-up approaches work best. Keep building trust, welcome feedback, even if they don't buy this time.
And always give them an easy way to opt out, right?
Always. Respect their inbox and their decision.
Okay, so recapping those 6 processes for a smooth, trust-building final close from Gessner's book, reasoned discount options.
The price assurance plan.
Engaging in open-ended conversations, really listening.
Validating their decision and outlining next steps clearly.
Then customer assurance for that long-term confidence.
And finally, the structured art of follow-up.
Each one seems designed to avoid that feeling of being overcharged or tricked on price, focusing instead on value and trust.
That's the core idea running through all of them. For everyone listening, it's probably worth thinking about your own process. Where do these strategies fit? What could you maybe implement or refine?
That's a great takeaway. And it leaves me with a final question to ponder, kind of building on this. How can a business weave the perception of value so strongly through every single interaction from the very first call through the assessment, the service itself, that when you reach step 10, the final close isn't really a hurdle at all, but just feels like the natural, obvious confirmation of the value they've already seen and felt?
Ooh, that's a powerful thought. Making the close almost a formality because the value is undeniable throughout the journey. That really speaks to building a fundamentally strong, customer-centric business.
It does.
Step 11 of a 12-step sales process. It's called customer assurance.
Exactly. And this step is, well, it's absolutely critical if your mission is to make sure that when a customer says yes, they stay yes. We want to cut down on those second thoughts.
Right, minimize the buyer's remorse kicking in. The sources really highlight that this customer assurance thing is about building trust and really reinforcing the value you just provided.
That's the core of it. It's solidifying their decision, making them feel confident.
And what's fascinating, based on what we've looked at, is that the real work often starts after they agree, but before you actually leave their house. That window seems key.
Oh, absolutely. That time is golden. It's your prime opportunity to, deepen the trust and make them feel genuinely good about the choice they just made to go ahead with the repairs.
So customer assurance isn't just like a polite goodbye then.
Not at all. It's actually quite strategic. It's designed specifically to head off cancellations by building that extra layer of trust and reinforcing why they decided to get the work done in the first place.
Okay.
And it actually breaks down into, well, the sources lay out about 6 key components to doing this effectively.
6 components. Okay, let's dive into those. What's the first one? It sounds pretty fundamental, explaining the next steps clearly.
Yeah, fundamental but easy to mess up, right? Think about it. The customer just agreed, maybe spent some money. Now they're thinking, okay, what happens now? Uncertainty breeds doubt.
Right, leads to anxiety.
Exactly. So you need to walk them through it. If you need to order materials, tell them. Explain that process. Give a realistic time frame, even if it's just tentative for now.
Okay, managing expectations from the get-go.
Precisely. And permits, too, if they're needed. Our sources mentioned being diligent about permits, though they also noted, interestingly, those exceptions, like under IRC Code 108.2, where maybe you don't need one for certain replacements. But the point is transparency.
Be clear about the process, whatever it is. And the sources also mentioned giving a tentative timeline for the actual work.
Yes, absolutely critical. Again, managing expectations. Don't leave them hanging, wondering when someone will show up.
Makes sense. And I saw something else interesting mentioned, telling them they'll get before and after photos.
Ah, yes. That's a powerful one. Think about what that signals.
It screams accountability, I think. Trust. You're showing you're confident in the work and willing to prove it. It ties back to doing good inspections and reporting up front too, doesn't it?
Spot on. It continues that thread of transparency right through to the end. You're preempting doubt.
Okay, so clear next steps, timeline, photos. Got it. What's component number 2?
Component 2 is all about ensuring follow-up and updates, keeping those communication lines open after you leave.
Right, because questions might pop up later, or they might just want to know things are moving along.
Exactly. You need to explicitly assure them they will be kept updated. Don't just assume they know.
And how do you do that effectively?
Well, it's not just saying we'll be in touch. The sources stress providing really clear contact information. Who should they call? What's the best number or email? Make it easy for them to reach out if they have questions.
Okay.
That accessibility can nip potential cancellations in the bud before a small worry becomes a big reason to back out.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Prevent the snowball effect. Okay, clear contact, promise of updates. What's number 3?
The third part is providing continued support. This looks a bit further ahead to after the repair is actually done.
So reinforcing that this isn't just a one-and-done transaction, building a longer relationship.
Precisely. You're signaling long-term commitment. The sources talk about maybe highlighting follow-up services, offering some useful maintenance tips related to the repair, or just generally reassuring them that you're still available if other issues come up.
And warranties, I saw that mentioned. Reminding them about any guarantees.
Huge. Absolutely huge. Reminding them of warranties or guarantees gives massive peace of mind. It shows you stand behind your work and reinforces the value they received. It makes their decision feel even more secure.
Yeah, a good warranty definitely helps you sleep better. Okay, so that's continued support. What about the 4th component? Building trust further. We've talked about trust a lot already.
We have, because it's foundational. But this 4th point emphasizes maintaining professionalism right to the very end of that initial interaction. Your demeanor as you're wrapping up, scheduling, saying goodbye, it all matters.
Ah, the final impression. Making sure it's a good one.
Exactly. You want to consistently reinforce the positive perception they have of your company. And the sources also highlight showing understanding and empathy.
Empathy, even after they've agreed.
Yeah, because they might still have some slight apprehension, maybe about the disruption or just the cost. Sincerely reassuring them that their satisfaction is the absolute top priority can really smooth over any lingering doubts.
Yeah, that human connection. Okay, professionalism and empathy. Now, number 5 was about soliciting customer feedback. When does that usually happen?
Yeah, typically this happens after the service is fully completed. But mentioning it during the assurance step can be powerful too.
How so? How does asking for feedback prevent cancellations?
Well, firstly, Just letting them know you will be asking for feedback shows you value their opinion. It makes them feel heard, strengthens the relationship, and reinforces their choice.
Okay, that makes sense.
And secondly, the feedback itself is gold. You learn what worked, what didn't. If there is a small issue you weren't aware of, getting feedback allows you to address it proactively, potentially saving that customer relationship and preventing negative word of mouth, or even future cancellations from others if you fix a systemic problem.
Right, it's a continuous improvement loop. Smart. Okay, that's 5. What's the 6th and final piece?
The sixth piece sort of ties it all together. It's ensuring a smooth transition and a positive final interaction on that initial visit.
So kind of the overall feeling you leave them with.
Exactly. It's the sum total of all these parts: the clear communication, the reinforcement of value, the reassurance, the professionalism. It's about making sure that final taste in their mouth is positive, confident, and satisfied. Ending on a high note, basically.
Got it. A strong finish that reinforces everything else. So stepping back, how does this whole customer assurance step with all 6 parts fit into the bigger picture, like the overall sales process or business strategy?
Well, it's huge. As the sources point out, a solid customer assurance process is fundamental for building long-term relationships. Happy customers come back and they refer others. That's your best marketing.
Can't argue with that. Repeat business and referrals are key.
And remember, we talked about purchasing decisions often being emotional, that emotional connection bit from the retail close. Customer assurance is where you reinforce the positive emotions they felt when they said yes. You're validating their gut feeling, making them feel smart about their choice.
Right, cementing that good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking practically, from a business operations standpoint, preventing cancellations must have a big impact on the bottom line.
Oh, massive. Every cancellation is lost revenue, wasted time, scheduling nightmares. It disrupts everything. So a strong customer assurance process directly boosts profitability by, well, stopping that leakage. It makes everything more efficient.
Yeah, you protect the revenue you've already worked hard to generate.
Precisely. So thinking about these 6 areas: clear steps, follow-up, ongoing support, more trust, feedback, and that positive final interaction, it really makes you think.
It really does. It feels like customer assurance isn't just a nice to have at the end. It's a really strategic, deliberate set of actions.
That's exactly it. It's a system. Clear communication, support, trust, feedback, positive finish, all designed to make that yes stick and prevent those costly cancellations.
So I guess the main takeaway here is that mastering step 11, customer assurance, is just vital. It's not the end of the sale. It's the start of ensuring satisfaction and loyalty, and crucially, protecting your business from cancellations by systematically handling these 6 key parts.
Which leads to the real question for everyone listening, doesn't it? How consistently are you implementing these 6 aspects of customer assurance right now? Even small tweaks in explaining next steps, or how you promise follow-up, or ask for feedback. What adjustments could make the biggest difference for your cancellation rate and build stronger customer loyalty? And we're using How to Build a Multi-Million-Dollar Home Service Business as our guide here.
That's right, our mission. To do a real deep dive into step 12. It's the final step in their sales process, relentless follow-up, and it's got, what, 7 parts?
7 key components, yeah. And there's this core idea in the book that really hits home.
Which one's that?
The cost of a client who does not do business with you is what makes a company successful or can put them out of business.
Wow. Yeah, that definitely puts it starkly. It's not just about the win, it's about the cost of the loss.
Absolutely. And remember, this follow-up job, it doesn't have to fall on just one person's shoulders.
Good point. It could be the tech who was on site.
Could be the tech, could be the office staff, could even be, specialized outside agencies. The book mentions chimneysweeps.com as an example.
Okay, interesting. So the key is that someone is doing it consistently.
That's the core message. Consistency.
All right, let's get into it then. Let's understand how to actually master this relentless follow-up.
Okay, so this whole idea of relentless follow-up, it's pretty natural for businesses to focus on getting new leads, right? Shiny new object.
Sure, acquisition is always exciting.
But the real leverage often is with the people who've shown interest but haven't, signed on the dotted line yet.
The ones that got away.
Oh,
Or nearly got away.
exactly. The material makes it clear a big chunk of potential sales just won't happen on that first interaction. It's just how it is.
Life gets in the way. People need time to think.
Precisely. And a structured follow-up system, well, it acts like a safety net. It catches those opportunities you'd otherwise lose.
And it's not just about badgering them for a sale, is it?
Not at all. It's actually about showing the customer you value their potential business, that you're committed to helping them. It sends a strong signal.
Right. I know if someone follows up thoughtfully, it makes me feel like they actually want my business and remember what I needed.
That's the goal. So we understand why it's important, but how do we actually do it? The book breaks it down into those 7 parts.
Okay, part 1 is basically what we've just been talking about. Understanding its importance. Recognizing you can't just let leads go cold.
Yeah, acknowledging that fundamental need. But, like you said, it can't just be a thought. It needs to drive action.
Which brings us neatly to part 2. Creating a follow-up schedule. You can't just wing it.
Definitely not. The advice here is pretty clear. Develop a structured plan. They suggest around 7 follow-up contacts.
7. Okay. Over what sort of time frame?
Over a, quote, reasonable time frame. It's
Right.
not rigidly defined. It likely depends on the service. But the key thing, the real art here, is tailoring each contact.
So not just generic check-ins.
Absolutely not. Think about it. Getting an email saying, just checking in, versus one saying, hey, last week we talked about that drafty window issue. Did you have any more thoughts on the repair options we discussed? Which one feels more valuable?
The second one, definitely. It shows they were listening and remembered the specifics.
Exactly. It dramatically increases your chances of getting them to re-engage. Every touch point needs to feel relevant to them.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Avoid the generic trap. So part 3 then moves on to how we make contact, the methods. It's not just phone calls, right?
Right. People have different preferences, different ways they like to communicate, so the source talks about using a mix.
Like what specifically?
It mentions a follow-up call, ideally the next day, to keep the momentum going.
Okay, quick turnaround.
Then a follow-up email, maybe 2 days later, good for putting details in writing.
People can refer back to that.
And it also mentions ongoing follow-ups, which implies a sustained effort, possibly using various methods over time.
And crucially, documentation.
Yes. Crucially, document every single interaction. Dates, notes about the conversation, what was agreed, next steps. All of it needs to go onto what they call a follow-up sheet.
Okay, that sheet sounds like the linchpin. We definitely need to talk more about that later.
It really is. It keeps everything organized and tracks progress.
All right, so we've got the importance, the schedule, the methods. Part 4 is potentially a bit more sensitive, offering final discounts.
Yeah, this one can make some businesses hesitate. The idea is to potentially include a final compelling discount in one of your later follow-up messages.
That's a final nudge.
Kind of, yeah, to incentivize a decision. But, and this is important, it needs to be handled strategically and respectfully.
How so?
The advice is to clearly state that this will be the last contact about this specific offer.
Setting expectations.
Exactly. It creates a bit of urgency, maybe scarcity, but without making you look like you're just desperate or going to spam them forever. It respects their inbox.
Okay, that's a fine line to walk, but I see the logic. So let's say we've done all that. Followed up, personalized, used different channels, maybe offered a final deal. What's next? Part 5. Tracking and adjusting.
Yes, this is critical. It's not a set it and forget it kind of deal.
You have to see what's actually working.
Precisely. You need that feedback loop. Monitor which follow-ups are actually leading to conversions, which emails get opened, which call scripts work best.
Looking at the data.
Exactly. Analyze the responses, track the sales that result, use that data to refine your approach. If, sending an email on a Friday afternoon consistently flops, maybe try Tuesday morning instead.
Continuous improvement. Makes sense.
It's all about optimizing based on real results.
Okay, part 6 then shifts the focus a bit. It's not just about the sale anymore, it's about enhancing customer relationships.
This is where that relentless part can actually be really positive. Follow-ups aren't just transactional, they're relationship builders.
How does that work in practice?
Well, the material suggests actively encouraging and welcoming feedback during your follow-ups. Ask them what they think.
Showing you value their opinion,
Right.
even if they haven't bought yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It demonstrates you're not just after their money, you're committed to providing value and improving your service. That builds trust and can foster loyalty way beyond one sale.
That's a great point. It changes the dynamic. It's an investment. Okay, and the final piece, part 7, feels absolutely non-negotiable today, respecting customer preferences.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely essential. The source really emphasizes always giving people a clear, easy way to opt out.
The unsubscribe link, or just letting them say no thanks.
Yes. And respecting that choice immediately and completely, it's crucial for maintaining a positive reputation. You don't want to be that company that won't leave people alone.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the 7 parts. Understanding importance, scheduling, using different methods, maybe a final discount, tracking results, building relationships, and respecting preferences.
That's the framework.
Now, let's circle back to that follow-up sheet you mentioned. It sounds like the practical tool that ties all this together.
It really is. Its value is in the structure. It starts with the basics, right? Capturing the core job info.
Like job ID, customer name, address.
Exactly. Date of the inspection or cleaning, the technician involved, all that basic context you need before you even think about following up.
Got it. And then it tracks the actual follow-up steps we just outlined.
Precisely. It has specific columns for each stage. Things like initial inspection cleaning completed was the detailed report sent. Then it tracks the follow-up call, the follow-up email, any ongoing follow-ups, and even whether a discount offered.
Wow, very detailed.
And within each of those columns, the idea is to have maybe sub-columns or drop-downs. Is it completed? What was the date completed? And space for notes.
So you always know exactly where you are with each lead. No guesswork.
That's the goal. It prevents things from falling through the cracks. You have a clear history of every interaction.
It really forces that structured, step-by-step approach we talked about.
It does. By following that predefined order and documenting everything, you build consistency. The source even suggests using color coding.
Oh, like traffic lights.
Sort of. Maybe green for completed tasks, yellow for things in progress, red if there's an issue or needs urgent attention. It gives you that quick visual status check.
I can see how that would be helpful, especially if you have a lot of leads.
Definitely. And they also mention sort and filter options, maybe even automated reminders. It turns a simple spreadsheet or system into a really powerful management tool.
So it's not just a static list, it's an active dashboard.
And the recommendation is to review it regularly, weekly, ideally.
Not just set it up and ignore it.
Absolutely not. The whole point, as the source stresses, is to diligently chase down every potential repair or extra service job. This sheet is the way to do that systematically.
And the payoff.
Well, the potential payoff is huge. More repair jobs booked, which means more revenue, but also better customer satisfaction because you're being attentive, increased loyalty, and just a stronger business reputation overall.
It really loops back to that initial quote about the cost of not converting a client. This system helps minimize that cost.
Exactly. It's about plugging the leaks in your sales funnel.
And you mentioned earlier, this doesn't have to be done by just one person. The book mentions techs, office staff.
Right. That's worth repeating. The technician might do an initial follow-up. The office might handle scheduling calls or sending reports. Maybe an external agency handles longer-term email sequences.
So it could be a team effort.
It often needs to be. The key is that the follow-up happens consistently and is managed effectively, regardless of who's doing each specific task. It needs to be a company-wide priority.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, the message seems crystal clear. This idea of relentless follow-up. When you do it strategically, thoughtfully, it's a potential game changer.
It really is. It's about persistence, sure, but smart persistence.
Being organized, adaptable, using the right tools, like that follow-up sheet, and always keeping the customer experience front and center.
Yes. Understanding why it matters, planning it out, varying your methods, tracking what works, building the relationship, and always respecting their choice.
It sounds like a solid recipe for converting more leads and ultimately building a healthier business. That quote really sticks with me.
The cost of a client who does not do business with you is what makes a company successful or can put them out of business. It puts the importance of effective follow-up into sharp focus. It's not just nice to have.
Absolutely. It feels essential. Okay, so here's something for you, our listeners, to think about. Consider your own situation, maybe your own business, or even just your interactions as a customer. How well are these follow-up steps actually being implemented?
Where are the gaps?
Yeah. And based on our dive today, what's maybe one small thing, one actionable change you could implement pretty much immediately to improve how you engage potential customers and maybe boost those conversions?
Just one small step can make a difference.
Definitely worth thinking about. We hope this is giving you some solid strategies to consider. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.